And we are live coast to coast. Thank you everyone for attending. Today we're going to talk about TV today in a digital world, the latest platforms, ideas, and strategies for Social Security disability television marketing. I'm Nathan Chapman. I'm president of Firmidable. I'm excited you're here today. So that is a long title, but we've got a lot to cover. And so I think maybe the long title is appropriate. Let's get started. Oh, I do want to mention we will take questions at the end, where the presentation is going to be right about a half an hour, and then we'll do a few minutes of questions. So you can submit through the Zoom panels, and we'll save those till the end. So I'm going to be talking to you for this half hour. So I thought maybe before I do that, maybe we should hear from somebody else. Let's listen to a few Social Security attorneys from different parts of the country. You might even recognize a few of them. Let's see what they have to say about television and Social Security disability today.
If a lawyer from another part of the country came up to me, knowing that we'd been around for a long time, and asked what I thought of television, I would tell him absolutely you need to do it. You need to develop a brand. You need to develop a personal relationship with people who are not yet your clients, but might become that. It just brings a whole range of personal interaction we can't get from print or online alone.
TV certainly reaches an audience in a different way than the internet. People at church or people in a restaurant, they tell me how much they liked our commercials because they get the feeling that I'm really being genuine.
I certainly don't think that TV is dead, certainly not in our area. The proof is in the numbers. When we do our intake and we ask how they were referred to our office, the majority of people tell us they've seen us on television.
Just on a trial basis, we cut back to 3 weeks out of the month. We noticed immediately the weeks that we did not advertise that it seemed like the phones almost just shut off. I see television advertising as an integral part of the entire advertising strategy, and as long as it works, we'll keep doing it.
All right, my thanks to those attorneys for sharing their thoughts with us. Let's see what we're going to cover today. We have 4 sections. First, we're going to do a very brief, little lighthearted history of television and Social Security disability. Then we'll talk about what is going on with Social Security disability and television today. In section 3, why television? And we're going to talk about terms like reach and UX, which stands for user experience. We'll get into what those mean. And then fourthly, we're going to talk about having a screen-to-screen strategy. This is where we're going to integrate the television screen with your digital screens. Let's start with that history of television and Social Security disability. So in the beginning, there was no professional marketing. There was no television for Social Security disability. There were Social Security attorneys for sure. They did things like yellow pages. Do you remember those? And maybe newspaper. I know the first Social Security firm I ever met, that's what they did. They did an ad in the newspaper. Now, there were lawyers on television. They were all car wreck lawyers. And they'd probably been going on about 10 years before the first Social Security ad aired on television. And anyway, but no other types of law that I'm aware of. It was in 1991 when I showed up to my first NOSR conference. That's 30 years ago this year. And I thought this was an opportunity to get the message out about how you could be helping people by using television. And indeed, it did change things. As we began to air the first television commercials for Social Security around the country, we started hearing things like it was an answer to my prayers. That's because people had gotten denied. And then they said, well, the government says I'm not disabled. I guess that's the case. And they gave up. But when these commercials came on, they weren't even thinking about it. And suddenly the messages were, don't give up. There's lawyers who specialize in this type of field. Call us and let us help you appeal. And everything began to change. I know I began crisscrossing the country, every part of the corner, every corner of the country that you can think of. I was going and meeting Social Security law firms and signing them up, most of which are still clients of ours today. And we began getting that message out that there were alternatives. You shouldn't give up. You should reach out to a Social Security law firm. Now, at some point, we all know that Al Gore invented the internet. That was a game changer. I know here at Firmidable, we started a digital department trying to take advantage of the internet. And I'm not even sure that Al Gore ever pictured that when he invented the internet, that lawyers would start using it for legal marketing, but they did things like websites and pay-per-click ads, things like that. That was a big game changer. Another game changer was when there were some companies that started selling leads. So what they would do is under their own names or their own brands, they would do things, primarily digital marketing, and then they would get claimants who needed help, and they turn around and they would sell it to law firms or advocates. What really changed things with this was before, now I guess like anybody with even a little money, I saw somebody one time, they had $500. They said, can I buy $500 worth of leads? And so everybody was jumping into this. They were considered easy cases and easy to get. Everybody was jumping into Social Security disability. But then things changed. Probably about 7 or 8 years ago, Social Security started clamping down, pressuring judges to deny more. And all those people who thought these were easy cases, they weren't so easy anymore. Bender and Bender went bankrupt. Big changes, on both the national scene and the local scene. The PI lawyers who got into it because of easy cases, they all started getting out. It wasn't easy anymore. But not everybody got out. There were these attorneys who stayed, who began to fight back. Maybe Social Security put a little less pressure on the judges, or maybe the attorneys started figuring out this is how we're going to win the cases these days. But there's new hope, and there's new attorneys who are not only surviving, but yes, they're thriving today. Before I go to the next section, I do believe in advertising. I do believe in commercials. So why don't we have a commercial break? Let's watch one commercial, and then I'll talk to you about it when we get to the other side.
Serious health problems just stop you from working. Now you're worried about keeping food on the table, paying your light bill, your mortgage is due. How are you going to survive? If your life has flipped upside down and you need Social Security disability benefits, call Yoakum Law Office to apply or fight a denial. We've helped thousands of people in Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois. Disability law is what we do. Call 866-339-0851. Yoakum Law Office.
So one of the reasons I picked that commercial was it may not be what you immediately picture when you think of lawyer commercials. I know as I've crisscrossed the country, that's one of the messages that I've also tried to think, to spread out, is we don't have to be cookie cutter in the way we do our commercial advertising. And in fact, I'm going to encourage you not to be. There was an example, we didn't even see a lawyer except a little still picture at the end. By being different, we can stand out and not look like all those car wreck lawyers. All right, let's go on to section 2. What's going on with Social Security disability and television today? Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot less national Social Security firms on the air. Not only Bender and Bender went bankrupt, but the Citizens Disabilities and all of those guys, they may do it some, but not nearly. I hardly ever see them, not nearly like they used to in the old days. There's a lot less local Social Security lawyers on the air also. I know there's a lot of markets now where they used to be really competitive on the airways, and there's no Social Security lawyers on the air. That's actually a real opportunity. If you can be the only one there, it's a real way you can stand apart. It's something you ought to think about. So if I could think about the earlier days before Social Security started making it so hard to win the cases, just everything was kind of easier. If I could think of that as the golden age, we may not be back to that, but let's think of it today as a silver age. The ones who are on the air now, they're doing really well because there's less competition. So it's a silver age. I've got a number of law firms where, Social Security firms, and they're saying they're setting records in terms of profitability in the long history of their firms. We represent now probably about 50 different firms using television. We have some others that are digital only, and there's nothing wrong with that. The ones who use television say it's their #1 source of cases. We do great digital. Television still beats digital. Things like word of mouth and referrals, all those important sources. Television is #1 when you know what you're doing. Another thing that's different today is there's more opportunities to coordinate with digital marketing. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the last section of this. And there's more options for television itself beyond linear TV. Now, linear TV is kind of a newer term for what we can think of as the original TV. So television, of course, used to be you watch one program after another when the TV stations wanted you to watch it. Let's say like 60 Minutes. It was always Sunday night. But these days, thanks to all the devices, there's more ways you can watch it. Certainly anytime you want it, wherever, however, just a lot more choices. In general, people spend the most time with traditional television, meaning broadcast and cable. This is a chart from a respected media company from 2021. This is recent. Yes, people spend a lot of time on the internet and social media and all kinds of things. Television still dominates in where people spend their time. I'm going to suggest to you that your clients, people who can't work because of health problems, they in fact watch more television than any other group of people we can think of, because they have so much time on their hands. Maybe some of them also are less mobile because of their health issues. They're staying home, and when they're at home, the TV's on for company and entertainment. All right, I did mention there's other options now for television-like experiences. They call this connected TV, sometimes OTT, which stands for over-the-top media. Here's some examples on the screen of the different devices and ways you can watch television programs and have your advertising inserted into it. What we like about these is there's more geographic flexibility. So let's say I live in New Orleans, and there's a Social Security firm that we work with here, and they do very well. But New Orleans, when you do broadcasts, reaches New Orleans, the city, and the suburbs, and all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, and to the north, and to the east, to the west. Maybe you don't want that whole area, in which case these digital platforms that provide a TV-like experience could be the way for you to go. What we also like about them is because they're digital, the internet knows everything about you. They can be data-driven. So instead of everybody who wants to flip on the show, we can figure out who we're trying to reach and target them more, which is really powerful, especially for your field, because I know you like those older claimants, right? What if that's the only ones that we serve the ads to? I want to dive a little deeper on one particular platform, and that's TrueView, which is a form of YouTube advertising. Now, YouTube is really important because it's the second largest search engine in the world. Now, we all know Google is number one. Number two is not Bing, it's not DuckDuckGo or any of those things. Number two is YouTube. It's a search engine. It's just all the information happened to be in videos instead of text. All right, so if you bought advertising in YouTube, then you're going to have a commercial, maybe the same commercial you run on broadcast TV. It's going to play before the other video that the person actually wanted to watch. If it's a really long video, it might actually play in the middle. What we like about the TrueView program is you don't have to pay for it if they're not interested in watching it. They see 5 seconds of your commercial and they can press a button and skip it. If so, you don't pay anything, or they can keep watching it. And if somebody watches it, that means they're more engaged. We like that. You only pay if they watch at least 30 seconds of your video or to the end of the video, whichever is shorter, or if they click on one of the elements, they could go straight to a landing page to get more information about your firm right now. Using things like YouTube or OTT, it gives you an opportunity to reach a targeted audience that you might miss if you only do traditional. It can target demographically, like we talked about, like age, we like that. Now, let me say you can't target by health. Of all the privacy laws around health are extra strict. That's probably a good thing. If you asked me, hey, can we target households where somebody has cancer? No, we can't do that. But it's still real powerful to target based on demographics. Or you can do other things like maybe target based on their search history. For example, if they've been to other similar law firm websites recently, we could serve them an ad. That could be really interesting. There's some other tools that make television modern today. I know here at Firmidable, we can offer you a dashboard where you can log in regularly, see, hey, how many calls did I get yesterday? We can also record the calls. That can be really powerful for improving the experience once somebody calls. I know that listening to some of these recordings, sometimes we would hear an intake person before they answer the phone, we would hear a big sigh. Smith and Jones, probably that's a paralegal with other things to do and they're busy, and just, that's something you want to be aware of, because that person's not probably in the right frame of mind, or doesn't have enough time to do a quality job on that intake. So because of things like that, you might want to consider like a call center. That's something that we could set you up with these days. If your team doesn't really have time, or maybe that, it's not the right personality. The people who work at call centers, all they do 24/7 in English or in Spanish is they answer the phone, or they also will chase your digital leads for you also. And they do it with the right attitude, and they've had training in this particular thing. So something you might want to think about. Another tool we have these days is tracking pixels. We can put a little piece of code in the commercial that the human can't see, but can be picked up by software. So instead of taking the station's word for when did your commercials air, we can track it ourselves and see it for ourselves when the commercials air. All right, let's go to section 3, why television? And it has to do with reach and user experience. So let's get a couple of definitions out of the way. Reach. Reach is the number of people in your target market who see your advertising. Now, in media buying, there's sort of a yin and a yang. There's reach and there's frequency. So frequency is how many times do the people in your target audience see your commercial. So you wouldn't want to have 1 million people watch your commercial only once. That would be great reach, but terrible frequency. Nor would you want to only have one person watch your commercial 1 million times. That would be over the top frequency and really terrible reach. So you want to have that right balance. I'm going to recommend to you that you use a professional media buyer like we have here at Firmidable to help you find that right balance. All right, the other definition we want to talk about was user experience. So user experience means taking into account the interest of your target audience, psychology, physiology, how do they react with things like motion and colors, trying to gauge how to best figure out how to have them successfully interact with the marketing platform and the message itself so that we maximize turning that target audience into people who actually reach out and become what we call a lead, somebody who wants to talk to you. Here's another one of those data charts, also from 2021, showing that of all the platforms where you can advertise, television, meaning broadcast and cable, still has the highest reach of any other platform that you can imagine. Yes, it seems like everybody has a smartphone these days, and that's really powerful, but television reaches even more people. Now, I've made a number of references to digital, and I want to take a second to say I am not putting down digital. Here at Firmidable, we love digital. In fact, I have a whole presentation that I do about digital. I'd be happy to send you a copy of. As I talk about digital today, I'm just making a contrast. My digital team, in fact, here is larger than my traditional team. So don't think I'm anti-digital, absolutely not. One of the reasons we do love digital is because when Americans search these days, when they're looking for solutions like how do I apply, or I got a denial letter, where's a disability attorney near me, they use the internet. They don't go to the yellow pages anymore. But sometimes they don't search. Sometimes they don't even know to search. They're not even thinking about it. That's the power of advertising. Remember the story I told at the beginning of the presentation about how people had given up, they didn't even know to go search? Advertising presents content, and while they're there, they get exposed to this message and they go, oh, that might be of interest to me. It doesn't wait to be found. Now, you might be thinking there are some types of digital that are like that. Yes, we have search engines like Google, but there's other types like Facebook and Instagram, or news sites like the New York Times, or maybe they just go to read some articles and they could be, exposed to an ad and might be interested in it. That might absolutely be something for you to consider, in particular, what are your goals and who you're trying to reach, et cetera. But in general, for Social Security disability, those ads, which we call digital display ads, they can't match the user experience of television. Let's have another commercial break. Let's watch for the user experience in this one. We'll talk a little bit about it on the other side.
My father needed Social Security disability. With his bad back, he couldn't work.
But these days, many people are denied the benefits they need.
One of my proudest moments was winning my dad's disability case.
If it's your loved one or you who can't work, we want to help.
From applying to appealing,
We help you every step of the way.
Call 888-777-7777. Levine Benjamin. There's no fee unless you win.
So I'm going to suggest to you that that's a rich user experience. Yes, it has attorneys on camera, but there was a lot of editing to hold, attention. The graphics had motion. It was not only, modern in its style, but that was all done to direct the eye to certain places. But there was another part to the user experience that made it a rich user experience, and I think that was the story. In that case, one of the attorneys told about representing his own father. I can tell you that he tells me all the time, people talk about that. They mention to him how they were touched emotionally that he represented his own father for Social Security disability. That's a rich user experience that you get in television. And yes, digital has video, we can see Facebook ads with some video. Usually they're more snippets. It's not usually that deep an experience as we just saw there. So there's sort of two big categories of television advertising: direct response and branding. So when I think of direct response, I think of things like, was it the Ginsu knives and the potato peelers and the sports equipment? The advertiser's hoping you pull out your wallet and right there, go ahead and make a purchase. Now, when we look on the right at Coca-Cola, that's a very sophisticated marketing company, right? They spend a lot of money, but they never even hope that you'll pull out the wallet and order your Coke over an 800 number. They use branding. They're just hoping to get inside your head, and later when you're thirsty or you're at the grocery store, you said, oh, let's get a Coke. Good legal commercials can be both. There's an element of direct response and branding. Remember at the beginning, we heard the attorneys talking and they talked about the phones ringing. That's direct response aspect. That's very powerful and we really like it. We can tell right away the commercials are airing. But there's an element to it of branding that's also very powerful. So yes, it's great to do pay-per-click ads in Google because people are searching for answers, but your neighbor's not searching for Google ads that then they tell you about. Whereas they might see these TV commercials, and when you're talking about, hey, you can't work, they might say, I've been seeing these commercials for this law firm, maybe you ought to call them. Or maybe the claimant themselves has been seeing the commercials for many years, and just like when they weren't thirsty for Coca-Cola, they didn't have a need for a long time, but now they do. That's branding. In fact, sometimes we'll have people who air commercials a long time ago, and they say people still remember them and call them from it. That's really powerful. Digital ads, when they stop, they stop. Okay, finally, section 4. What is a screen-to-screen strategy that you should have? When I first started this back in the early days, I literally used to talk about we need to have a phone number up in the commercial long enough at the end so people could run and grab a pencil and write down the phone number. Nobody runs for the pencil anymore. We're likely to be watching that television screen with another screen in our lap, either a smartphone or a tablet like an iPad, something like that. So people, instead of running for the number, if they don't remember it, then they'll just Google you and get it that way. So you need to coordinate things, but some firms do not. You need to really protect the brand. Now, if you call Firmidable and you had us do both your television and your digital, we will watch out for that for you. But sometimes people will call us for one or the other, just the digital or just the television. If that's you, and that's fine, you need to watch the brand. Every time you see Home Depot and Walmart, the logo's always the same. Look in this case, here's the same law firm, and the digital company is using a different logo than what we did for the television. You need to ensure there's brand consistency. That's how people will know they're at the right place when they go online. And also it makes you look more professional. People can't really tell how good a lawyer you are, so they're going to judge you by things like professionalism. Okay, before I close out, I want to do a case study which really emphasizes the correlation between digital and television. This case study is actually about a different type of disability law. It's about special education. There was a law firm who specialized in this type of law in upstate New York. They were all over the state, except they were not yet in the city of Rochester. And they said, let's do this experiment in Rochester so we'll know that any cases that come from Rochester are due to the marketing. So we made them some commercials. We decided to use that old yellow school bus as an element that showed up in every commercial. We also redid their website because we do great digital work here. And anyway, we decided to have that brand consistency and have that yellow school bus appear on their website too. All right, how did it do? Well, first let's look at phone calls. So the commercial started airing. The purple bars represent the weeks the television was on the air. We were not on every week. So the purple is when we're on the air. The gray is when we're off the air. And look, we're getting phone calls right away. That's great. It's now we're getting more calls when the commercials are on the air than not, but that makes sense. What's interesting to me, so we can think of those purple bars as direct response, people calling right away. But even when the commercial's off the air, still some people are calling. It's already in their head. They're starting to talk to people, maybe their spouses or their neighbors or whatever. And we're getting phone calls when they're off the air. That's the branding. Okay, but we really want to see what's going on with digital during this campaign. So let's look at that. We're doing their website, so we're studying the traffic. We isolated the website traffic just to Rochester. And what did we see? So again, purple bars is when television's on the air, but this time we're measuring website traffic. And look, we clearly get more website traffic when the commercials are airing in Rochester than when not. We get some in the off weeks, but nearly, a lot more when we're on the air for television. Now, I don't know about you, but I noticed that some of those purple bars look taller than the other purple bars. And we went, wait a minute. We remembered that sometimes we only did daytime when the law office was open. And sometimes we did another type of advertising, day part for television called prime access. Things like Wheel of Fortune before prime time starts, but after the law office would be closed. We wonder if there was a correlation here. Absolutely, there was. The purple bars are when the television includes prime access. And look, the website traffic is at its highest because they know the law office is closed. They go online to learn more. Then the black bars are when daytime television is on, and gray bars is when there's no television at all. Clearly shows a correlation between digital traffic and television. I want to look at this question a whole different way. Remember I mentioned we redid their website and we do those really well. So strictly by doing a better website, we doubled the amount of leads from traffic. This measures conversion, taking the amount of traffic and what percentage of that decided to reach out and become a lead, want to talk to a lawyer. It doubled. We're really proud of it. That's really great. But what happened in Rochester? This is for the website as a whole. When we isolated it just to Rochester, boom, it's through the roof. The people in Rochester who'd been exposed to the TV commercials were way more likely to, from the website, say, yes, I'd like to talk to one of the attorneys. That shows you the power of digital and television combined. Let's recap what we talked about, and then we're going to do those question and answers. We started first with a brief history of television, Social Security. We talked about what's the latest. There's been many changes. What's going on with Social Security Disability Day and why I'm so excited about its potential today. Why television? We talked about its reach and its user experience and why it's important to have a screen-to-screen strategy so you really maximize your results. So I appreciate you listening for all of that. I'm going to ask my associate, Doug, did we get any questions during our time?
Yes, thank you, Nathan. We got a couple, and anyone can feel free to ask more via the Q&A panel. But the first one we got was, we were doing TV for about 20 years and we stopped because it trailed off. How might that have changed now?
Well, thank you for that question. That is absolutely why we're doing this program today. There is a new opportunity. We're very excited about it. We're seeing record results. So I do think it's worth giving another shot now. I, in fact, have reached out to some former clients who used to do television and they stopped when it got hard to win the cases and said, what about if we gave it another go? And without exception, they've all stuck with it and are really happy. So we should do it. By the way, so I don't know who submitted the question, whether somebody who's worked with Firmidable before, or not, but to be honest, nobody knows this field better than we do, especially for television. So if you didn't try it with us, give it a new try and talk to us about it. And I think we can be a game changer for you.
All right, great. We have a couple more. Next one, any discussion about local network ads versus cable?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. That's a really good one. So we study the data a lot. We're very data driven. We were even before there was an internet. Now there's even more data. And so we did a lot of studying. Remember how I'd say the phone would ring right away? Well, we looked at that. Not everybody calls you right away, but as you noticed, from all those charts, a lot of people did. So we said, well, how many people called within 10 minutes of airing? So we looked at that often. And I'll tell you, for Social Security disability, consistently, we saw and still see the best value in broadcast compared to cable. Now, the OTT is still something that we should try for different strategies, but it's really hard to beat broadcast. It may cost more in total, but the cable, you just don't get as big an audience. And usually the broadcast turns out to be well worth the money.
Okay, it looks like we have one more. That is, my family watches Netflix and Disney Plus now. Does that affect how you do TV buys?
That's also a great question. When you're doing marketing of any type, you got to be really careful not to project yourself onto your target audience. I think today everybody we're talking to is a working professional. Well, with the Social Security Disability campaign, working professionals is not who I'm trying to reach. So the claimants are watching a lot of broadcasts. Now they may also, depending on how desperate they are in terms of they can't work and their income situation, but they may also watch Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus, et cetera, but they're also watching like a lot of broadcasts. So I absolutely would make broadcast the heart of your strategy. And I just, even if you never watch it yourself, the claimants do. I see that over and over, and I'd be happy to show you more data on that. So I think that's about the time that we have today. I invite you to have that one-on-one conversation. I'll just show you more commercials, talk to you about your situation, your goal, see what's going on with advertising rates in your community. And I think we could have a really rich experience there. Our information's on the screen. Look forward to talking with you. Now go out there and get some great cases today. Thank you.